Molly Carmel, and this is the podcast I always wish existed. A bite sized, on the ground spiritual note that can shift your thinking and your outlook on life to help make us all a little bit more awake, alive, and ascending. So, today we're going to talk about asking for what we need. And specifically about what happens when we don't, when we decide in advance that the answer is going to be no, and we never give anyone the chance to say yes. And about something a client said to me recently that I keep coming back to because I think it really says everything. So I was working with someone in my SOS group recently who was struggling, and she lives with some roommates, and there's food in the house that's kind of hard for her, food that tempts her, makes her recovery a bit harder, and it's sitting there in the shared kitchen every day. And she said to me, quietly, like quietly, do you think I could ask my roommate to keep his food somewhere separate, like maybe in a different cabinet, so that I don't have to see it every day? And gosh, my heart got, I really like namaste that question. I really, really got it. And so I looked at her and I said, you can ask for anything you want, right? It doesn't mean they're going to move the food. It doesn't mean they're going to be excited about it, even if they do say yes, but you can ask for anything you want. And especially in this case, asking means you honored yourself. And her face changed because I think that she had been sitting with this for a bit of time. And my assumption is, saying, oh, it's too much to ask. And maybe people would think she's being difficult, that it's not worth the awkwardness, that she should just, get stronger and handle it herself. I mean, those are all the things I would say, at least, right? And underneath all of that was a story that she had been telling herself, a story about what the answer was going to be before she'd even asked the question. And again, like namaste, asking for what you need. I get it. I know that story and I tell it too. And I think a lot of us do. And so funny, I was recently in the middle of trying to get a new car lease, which, ascenders, let me tell you, not my natural habitat. I promise you. I am like, I hear a number and just get deflated. I'm so bad at negotiation. It's not even funny. And, you know, the dealer said something to me about a particular car, and I just said something like, well, I guess that's not going to work. I guess I'm not going to be able to get this car. And the car dealer looked at me and he said, just tell me what you're thinking. If you don't ask, you're not going to know. And I'm like, right. I'm deciding for him. I keep deciding for everyone else and keep assuming the door is locked before I've even tried the handle. How do you like that car analogy? Also, on an aside, really good negotiation tact, but was really coming from my lower self, right? So fun fact over there. And so when we're talking about unworthiness, a great pocket sage is Brené Brown. I mean, she's like a co-star on Daily Ascent by now, but we're going to use her over and over and over again, especially in these moments, because she's an amazing researcher. And she's really one of the most important voices we have on vulnerability and courage and human connection. And so this is from her book, Rising Strong. We're wired for story, and in the absence of data, we will rely on confabulations and conspiracies. Fear sets in and often dictates the story. What is the hypothesis of generosity? What is the most generous assumption you can make about this person's intentions or what this person said? Let me read that again for those of you in the back. We're wired for story, and in the absence of data, we will rely on confabulations and conspiracies. Fear sets in and often dictates the story. What is the hypothesis of generosity? What is the most generous assumption you can make about this person's intentions or what this person says? And yeah, exactly. In the absence of data, we don't know what the answer is, right? And when we don't know what the answer is, fear can fill the gap so quickly. And just to be clear, fear almost always fills it with a hard no, rejection. You're asking too much. Don't bother. right? But what if we applied this hypothesis of generosity instead? What if we assumed the most generous possible answer and then gave the person a minute to respond? And so, our word of the day today is ask. Asking is really an act of self respect. It really is. I'm working on it with you because it says, I believe my needs are worth naming. I trust that the people around me deserve the chance to respond. And it says, I'm not going to decide this before it's been decided. And listen, if you're like me and you are on the side of the spectrum towards people pleasing, towards not wanting to be a bother, managing everything ourselves so no one's ever inconvenienced, asking can literally feel like the hardest thing in the world. It can feel presumptuous, too much, terrifying. But Brene Brown's reading is really saying something here. When we don't ask, we fill the silence with fear. We write a story about what the answer would have been, and we live inside that story as if it were true. And I don't know, most of the time, I think it isn't, because most of the time, the person on the other side doesn't even have an idea that we wanted something. We just decided for them. And then we felt hurt by a rejection that didn't even happen. And so here's what I want you to think about today. And I want to say this as lovingly as I can because I know this one hits close to home, especially for me. Not asking is not protecting you. It's keeping the answer no. And so when my client asked whether she could ask her roommate to move the food, I don't think she was asking me whether the roommate would say yes. She was asking me whether she was worth the ask. And I mean, that's the real question underneath all of this, isn't it? Not will they say yes, but am I allowed to want this? Am I worth advocating for? Do my needs deserve to be said out loud? And ascenders, the answer is yes, always yes, regardless of what the other person says. And here's what I want to say to all of us. You honor yourself by asking, whether the food gets moved or not, whether the number is the one that I want for the car. Something important really happens the moment you say, I need this, and I'm going to say it. You stop deciding for other people. You stop living inside a story that fear wrote for you. And on an aside, you give someone the chance to love you well and give yourself the dignity of having tried. And that's something. And, I'm an offender. I literally did that in that car dealership. I heard like a number or a concept and I just deflated before I even gave him a chance to work with me. And when he said, tell me what you're thinking. If you don't ask, you're not going to know. I literally was like the hand in the face emoji because I just realized how often I do this and how often I protect myself from a no that's not even coming and how often I make it about me before I've even let anyone else have a say. And this hypothesis of generosity that Brene Brown is talking about, practicing assuming the most generous possible response from someone before they've even had a chance to respond, that could be very freeing. Remember, like a belief is a repeated thought, and this is like a belief worth integrating. Because most of the no's that we're afraid of live entirely in our own heads. Most of the people that we're afraid to ask are actually just waiting to be asked. They don't know what we need. We haven't told them. So, to quote my car dealer, if you don't ask, you're not going to know, right? It's not just good advice for a car dealership. It's a way to move through the world. It's a way to honor yourself. And maybe it's going to change a lot about how the people around you are able to show up for you, right? Ask for what you need. Let people surprise you. You deserve a chance to find out. And so, our reflective question for the day: what's one thing you've been needing that you haven't asked for? And what's the most generous assumption you can make about what the answer might be? And listen, I mean, if not asking for what you need shows up most painfully in your relationship with food or body or dieting, And if you've just been like managing in silence and white knuckling it alone and not letting anyone in on what you've been struggling with, oh, my heart is open for you. And that is literally what my Stop Starting Over system is built for. You deserve the help you need. And the first step is asking for it, right? So go book a call with me. I want to talk all day. You can find the link in the show notes, or you can go to mollycarmel.com for more information. And I am right here with you, Ascenders, learning to ask one brave moment at a time. And if this one landed with you, shout it from the rooftops. Send it to your friends, your family, your enemies, everybody. The more, the merrier, because we rise together. Until next time.